All right, so this is this is take two at this. so I did like the first couple of cards, and I realized the camera wasn't on. So once again, we'll try it like it's the first time. All right, I'm back after spring break. Some folks are still on spring break. I'm back early. I'm in the mix. I'm in the chair. I'm on the greasy and the grizzy. We're back with a little bit of a new format. We got more focus, more topics, more sauce. Today we're getting deep. We're talking about Kanye West. Legally, I guess it's Ye, Yeezy. Either way, I think last week he staged one of the most commercially audacious comebacks in modern music history. His album Bully, released March 28th, 2026, debuted at number 2 on the Billboard 200 with 98 million on demand streams in 1 week, two sold out nights at the SoFi Stadium, grossing $33 million, with one single Friday night generating $18 million alone. That's among the highest grossing single concerts in live music history. Yet simultaneously, his booking at this 3 night headliner in London's Wireless Festival triggered a mass sponsor exodus. Pepsi, decade long partner, Diageo, Rockstar, PayPal, all have pulled out, citing his anti Semitic sentiments. Well, either way, in this episode, we're going to examine the Kanye story not as celebrity gossip, but more as a masterclass in cautionary tale for Black entrepreneurs navigating brand equity, crisis management, institutional dependence, and high stakes game of public redemption. Anyway, I'm Mickey Black. We're here on the grind. This is the GRZY. Let's get into it. Welcome back. This is GRZY. I'm your host, Mickey Black. And if you're new here, this is the show where we take what's happening in culture, break it down for people that are actually building something. Your entrepreneurs, your creatives, your founders, your executive types, the ones who don't just watch the game, we play it. Today's episode, it's one thing we've all been thinking about for the last, couple of days, couple of weeks, 2 weeks, whatever it is. The story we're diving into is not a music story. It's not a celebrity story. It's a business story with nine-figure numbers, a brand destroyed and partially rebuilt, and lessons that apply directly to what we're trying to do. The name is Kanye West. Yay, Yeezy, depending on the day, depending on the time. But before you roll your eyes, and stay with me for a minute. Because whether you love him or hate him, or just stopped paying attention, what has happened over the last few days is genuinely both extraordinary and complicated. Maybe extraordinarily complicated. So let's start with the facts. This is what we know. March 28th, he dropped an album, Bully, debuted at number 2, Billboard 200. First week alone, 98 million on demand streams. He then plays 2 nights, SoFi Stadium, sold out, gross 33 million. One night alone is 18 million. It's among the highest grossing single concerts in history of live music. At the same time, right across the pond, they're booking him on the 3 night headliner Wireless Festival in London. I personally hadn't heard of the Wireless Festival, but apparently it's been around for a while. and now they're experiencing a sponsor stampede. Pepsi, who's been with the festival for over a decade, is gone. Diageo. You might not have heard of Diageo or who is Diageo. When you think of Diageo, it's Guinness, it's Bailey's, Smirnoff, Captain Morgan, Johnny Walker, on and on. All gone. Rockstar, gone. PayPal, gone. All walked. So you got one of the biggest commercial comebacks of the year and total institutional collapse happening simultaneously. That's what we're looking at today. I want you to listen, not as a fan or a critic, but as a business person, because the playbook, the or anti-playbook, it's all right here. All right, let's dig into it. So let's go back, because to understand what's happening now, you need to just go back to what Ye was at his peak. Again, not as an artist. Let's look at it as a business. At his height, Kanye West wasn't just a rapper. He was one of the most commercially potent brands in the world. The Yeezy line with Adidas was worth sometimes they estimate anywhere between $1.5 to $3 billion annually. And to that partnership, and then he had the deal with the Gap for Yeezy Gap. He had the Balenciaga. He had his own label, a fashion house in Paris. He was genuinely, legitimately one of the most valuable creative entrepreneur brands on the planet at the time. So then, and this is kind of important. He didn't just lose it. He detonated it. In 2022, a series of increasingly extreme public statements, anti-Semitic comments, statements glorifying Nazi ideology, songs literally called Heil Hitler, released in 2025. He had the swastika merchandise on his website, caused full institutional collapse. Adidas dropped him, Gap dropped him, Balenciaga dropped him. Talent agencies, brands, one by one, drop by drop. Now, here's the business question I want you to hold in your mind. How do you rebuild after that? How? You got the answer, Sway? No. The yay answer, the fascinating and instructive, and even if you find the man impossible, here's the answer. Step one. Step one of the comeback architecture is the apology. January 2026, Ye took out a full page ad in the Wall Street Journal, not a tweet, not an Instagram post, the Wall Street Journal, the newspaper of American business. He retracted his statements, attributed his past behavior to his bipolar disorder and what he described as a brain injury, and declared, quote, I love Jewish people. Now, now we're going to talk about whether the apology, we're not going to talk whether was the apology enough for whom. I don't know. But from a pure PR strategy standpoint, the choice of venue was significant. That ad wasn't for the fans. It was aimed at the institutional corporate world. Step two, release the music. Bully drops March 28th. Strong reviews, strong numbers. Now, step three, go directly to fans. 2 nights, SoFi, $33 million. No sponsors needed. nor corporate permission required. And that's where the story really gets interesting. But before we get into that, I wanted to jump in here for a quick second and let you know we're looking for guests, entrepreneurs. We've had a couple of guests. We've had Josiah Faze on. We've had Chef Harry. We've had a couple of other folks on the GRZY. In this new season, we're looking to really amp up our game. You want to talk about your latest startup. You want to talk about your brand, your campaign, whatever it is, or even if you just want to launch your personal brand, whatever it is, the GRZY is looking for guests, entrepreneurs, executives. You're out there, you're on your grind, you need a platform, hit me up. I'm going to leave a link in the description, but I believe you can catch us at uh, thegrizzy.com. That's TheGRZY.com /be our guest, or hit me up at info at thegrizzy.com, or just hit us up. Or, well, I was going to say hit us up on IG, but I'm not going to check IG. If you really want to be on the joint, hit me up on the email, hit me up on the form. I'm not checking IG for your joints. Anyway, if you want to be on the platform, hit me up, get down, or get clown. All right, back to the story. I want to give you five frameworks, five lenses for looking at the Ye story, and I think they have direct practical relevance for anybody building a brand, especially as a Black entrepreneur in America. Framework one, the two economies. So this framework I call the two economies, and this might be the most important thing in this whole episode. The fans paid $33 million in 2 nights. They showed up, they screamed, every word they were singing. They had the Lauryn Hill. Man, you seen the Lauryn Hill before? That was deep. Anyway, the love was real. The love was immediate. Sponsors, no. Pepsi, no. Diageo, no. Rockstar, no. PayPal, no. Four major institutional sponsors from a single festival in a week. So that's two completely different economies responding to the same person in two completely different ways. A economy runs on emotion, connection, shared experience. They don't give a shit. They're coming, they're screaming, they're yelling. The sponsor economy runs on risk management, brand safety, institutional optics, and those two economies have completely different rules. As a Black entrepreneur, you need to know which economy you're operating in. And often you're operating in both simultaneously. So the question is, if the sponsor economy closes the door on you, where is your fan economy? Can that sustain you? Yay, at his level, the answer is yes. He's hitting the fans, he's getting the bag. Most of us aren't at that level, and we're not always operating in that framework. So who are your fans? What does that fan economy look like for you? Because most of us are in the institutional economy. May have to start to understand the rules of both. That's first. Number two, the framework of brand equity. Brand equity is your most valuable asset. And so frame two looks at brand equity not as your logo, not as your website. It's the trust, the affinity, the emotional residue that exists in people's minds when they think about you. At his peak, Ye had extraordinary brand equity. Adidas, the Easy Deal alone leveraged that equity. They generated about $1.5 billion on a bad year. This brand made things worth more just by touching it. And that type of real power. That's the goal. But that's what we often don't talk about. Brand equity is also the first thing to go when trust collapses. Adidas didn't drop them because shoes stopped selling. The Yeezy 350 was still crushing it. The day they pulled the deal. They dropped him because the brand equity went negative, meaning associating with him now costs them more than it was making them. For Black entrepreneurs, you're often starting with less brand equity, not because of anything you did, but because of systemic bias in how institutional institutions perceive and value Black-owned brands. That means you've got less margin for error, and you need to be even more deliberate about building and protecting it. Enough said. Framework 3, institutional dependency risk. Now, this framework is the one I call independent institutional dependency risk. It's in this piece that keeps me up at night as I think about the ecosystem we're trying to build. EA's business at its peak was deeply dependent on institutions. Adidas, Gap, Balenciaga. Those institutions could and did cut him off entirely, essentially overnight. One week he was a billionaire. Shortly after, Forbes was reporting his net worth had dropped by hundreds of millions of dollars. Now, look at what happened at SoFi Stadium. No sponsors, no labels, support in the traditional sense. Bully came out on his own easy label through Gamma. They went direct to consumer. $33 million, 2 nights. There's a lesson in there about building distribution and the relationships that institutions can interrupt. When you own the relationship with your audience, you own the cash flow. The question for every entrepreneur in this room is, where are you exposed to institutional dependency? Who can pull the plug on your revenue? What are you doing to build channels that they can't touch? It's a question for us all. Anyway, next, framework 4. This the geography of forgiveness is very nuanced. This geography of forgiveness. Here's what's wild about the moment in America. Yeah, it's back. Fans are there. The numbers are there. The narrative is shifted towards redemption, at least among a large portion of his audience. And in the UK and Europe, the wireless festival booking has been described by Jewish Leadership Council as deeply, deeply irresponsible. My guy, David Schwimmer, went public saying, yeah, he should not be granted a platform. Sponsors fled before he even arrived. Same person, same apology, completely different reception. Why? Cultural context. America has a very specific relationship with redemption narratives. We love a comeback. And in certain communities, the idea of institutional cancel or canceling someone actually creates sympathy for the person who was canceled. That dynamic plays very different in Europe. For Black entrepreneurs thinking about global expansion, you can't always assume your brand travels the same way across cultures, across geographies. What rehabilitates it in one market may not rehabilitate in the other market. So do your due diligence. You got to include understanding across cultural currents. So read and understand the translation, the cultural context, the geography. Anyway, enough said. And with that, number five, last or fifth framework. And this is real, the double standard. And I want to be direct here because I think it matters. There is a real and documented double standard in how Black entrepreneurs and executives are treated when they make mistakes versus their counterparts. Studies show that Black executives are held to higher standards of conduct and then face more severe consequences for the equivalent missteps. The margin for error is small, the scrutiny is great, and the institutional forgiveness is slow. So, I want to be very clear, and I'm not in any way excusing or minimizing what Ye said. Or anti-Semitism is hateful and it causes real harm. Communities affected are right to be angry and demand accountability. Full stop. But as a strategic matter, as a lesson for Black entrepreneurs, the message is this: the cost of brand destruction is asymmetric. You will not be given the same runway to rebuild that others might get. This is not fair, but this is also real, which means protecting your brand proactively, not reactively. It's not optional. It's survival. Build systems, build crisis protocols, and have advisors who will tell you the truth. Create structural guardrails, not because you don't trust yourself, but because we're all human, and humans, we make mistakes. So if you're a Black entrepreneur, you need to make fewer of them and have a plan for when you do. All right. So here's what I want you to take away from this yay story so far. He lost everything that institutions could take: the deals, the partnerships, the endorsements. What he kept was the relationship with his audience. And that generated $33 million in 48 hours. That is an asset that no sponsor can take away. Your community, your audience, your people. That's your most defendable or defensible position. Build it like your business depends on it, because it does. All right. We'll be right back. Or, we're going to switch around. Really quick before we wrap this up, I wanted to share something. I got a secret on how I stay so sharp, how I stay getting it, how I stay so ill in these streets just on the GRZY every day. When I get up, I got a crew. It's called the morning meetup. I mean, let me stop talking. Let me just show you what I got. So the morning meetup, it's a online mentorship accountability group. Typically, it's about 100 entrepreneurs getting on the line every day consistently. Consistency is the only cheat code, and I'm out here cheating, getting it. There's a coach over there, your host, David Shands. He's on there every day in the AM. You know, if you are up and you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to take it to the next level, don't let good entrepreneurs don't let entrepreneurs do entrepreneurship alone. Check out the morning meetup. I will put a link in the description. Anyway, back to the show. So, listen, crazy story, but I think the practical takeaways is the important part. Let's take a look. I took a look. I got 7 takeaways that we can use. And these aren't theoretical, these are real takeaways that we can apply. Let's start first. Audit your brand equity now, today. Sit down and honestly answer this question. If you vanished from social media tomorrow, no posts, no ads, no marketing, how long would your audience stay engaged? How deeply do they care about you and what you stand for? And that gap between your marketing activity and your underlying brand equity, that's your vulnerability. Close it by focusing on depth of relationship and not breadth of reach. Number 2, institutional dependencies. Make a list. Every partnership, every platform, every distribution channel that somebody else controls, whether it be Amazon, Instagram, corporate sponsor, big box retail. Take a real look and ask, if they pulled the plug tomorrow, what happens to my revenue? If the answer is, I'd be in serious trouble, it's not a death sentence, but it's a signal that you need to start building a parallel channel now while things are good, not when you get in crisis. Number 3, build a crisis protocol before. 3, build a crisis protocol before you need one. Most entrepreneurs think crisis management when they need it in a crisis, but by then it's too late. You need a document now that answers, who speaks for my brand in an emergency? What is our response playbook? Who are 2 or 3 advisors that I can call at midnight who will tell me the absolute truth? Ye made it this far, partly because of talent and partly because of luck, but the comeback required a Wall Street Journal full page ad, a new album, 2 massive concerts, and just to start the conversation. The cost of not having a crisis plan is enormous. So start to write yours now. 4, choose your apology venue strategically. If you ever had to make an apology, a public apology in the business or in a brand, Understand that the venue sends as loud a message as the words. Ye chose the Wall Street Journal because he was signaling to institutions. A tweet would have signaled to fans. A press release would have been totally ignored by everybody. Where you say it communicates what you're who you're saying it to. Now, where you say it communicates who you're saying it to and how seriously you're talking about it. Think about this before you're in the moment, not during. Number 5, go directly to your community. SoFi Stadium members are master. The SoFi Stadium numbers are a masterclass in direct consumer brand building. He didn't wait for Adidas to come back. He went directly to the people who love his music. For you, that might mean building an email list, a private community, subscription product, something where you're in the ownership, where you own the relationship. Something where you can access the platform without paying a platform tax for not needing a gatekeeper's approval. That direct channel, that's your insurance policy. Takeaway 6, understand your market's forgiveness clock. U.S. consumers move fast. Culturally, the news cycle is short and redemption arcs are plentiful. European institutional buyers move slower, hold receipts longer, and you just got to know your market. If you're building a global brand, you can't have different ethics for different, you've got to have different ethics for different geographies. But you can't have different communication strategies. You just need to have different timelines to reestablish those trust and those relationships. Number 7, protect your brand proactively. This this is the one I want to land the hardest because the Ye story is ultimately about what happens when you have generational talent and no structural guardrails. The world he operated in allowed, he even encouraged his worst impulses. Do not let that happen to you. But people around you who challenge your decisions, build legal and ethical compliance into your business now. Protect your protect your reputation like it's worth money because it is. For a black entrepreneur, the cost of brand destruction is not just financial, it's generational. All right? All right. We're almost done. Just answering a couple of short questions on the topic some people sent over. Is the A comeback real or a mirage? Commercially, it's real. Institutionally, that's still out. That can be debated. The fans showed up, the sponsors have not. Would a white artist face the same institutional blowback? The answer, unlikely at the same scale. Double standard is real. The behavior was also generally extreme, so those two things both are true. Is the Wall Street Journal apology enough? Depends on who you're asking. For his US fan base, I guess it was enough to start. For Jewish communities affected, probably not. For sponsors, again, jury is still out depending on the market. Was the single most impressive business move in this whole story. The SoFi Stadium. No sponsors, no corporate permission, 33 million, 48 hours. He owned the relationship with his audience and monetized it directly. That's the move. What was the single biggest mistake black entrepreneurs should make watching this story? single biggest mistake could be thinking that they can afford to make mistakes at a smaller scale. You can't. The institutional margin for error is thinner for us. You got to play cleaner, not more cautiously, but cleaner. One word where the A brand is now bifurcated. You've got two completely different realities, just two different uh, places in terms of where he is with his audience and any institutional partners. Um, Best book a black entrepreneur should read alongside this episode. There's I like this book. It's called The Obstacle is the Way. It's a Brian Holiday. It's a good book about this topic to just kind of understand how, fortunately, unfortunately, adversity can become an advantage. But also read the reputation economy to understand how fast brand equity moves in the digital age. It's crazy. But with that, anyway, here's the thing about Kanye West is I don't think it's said enough about in these conversations. He is, by any objective measure, one of the most gifted, creative commercial minds of his generation. The easy brand, the production work, the ability to build the cultural movement from scratch. The talent is real. And it was in service of building something genuinely historic. Then he blew it up repeatedly. And now he's rebuilding also repeatedly. I'm not here to celebrate that. I'm just here to say the story is a mirror and it reflects back at us questions we all have to answer. How much of your brand equity is real? How much of it is just leverage from the institutions propping you up? How diversified is your revenue? How strong is your direct relationship with the people you serve? And how would your business survive if the biggest institution in your life said no tomorrow? The A story is extraordinary because the numbers are extraordinary, but the dynamics, the institutional dependency, the brand destruction, the community loyalty that outlasted those corporate relationships, those dynamics play out every day at every scale in your city, in your industry, maybe in your business right now. So study it, learn from it, not as a fan, as a founder. And this episode gave you something to think about, share it, forward it to an entrepreneur you know, post a clip, tag us at the GRZY if you're brave, if you dare. We're we're trying to build something here in this community, one conversation at a time, and your share is how we grow. So hit subscribe wherever you listen, follow us wherever you follow. We'll see you later. Next episode. All right. Until then, stay on the grind. Stay on the GRZY. Oh, again, one more thing. Again, if you're down, you want to be on the GRZY, you're on your grind, hit us up. Info at the GRZY or whatever you want to say, talk about. You got a business idea, you got a topic you think we should cover, hit us up. Info at thegrzy.com. That's TheGRZY.com. All right. Until then, later.